My name is Myron Kandel. I'm here with Keith Springer, the president of Springer Financial Advisors and the host of the radio show Smart Money with Keith Springer. He's also the author of Facing Goliath, How to Triumph in the Dangerous Market Ahead. You got a lot on your plate. How do you focus your business?
My business is focused on people who are planning for retirement, what I call in their retirement red zone, or already retired. They're the people I recognized years ago that we're going to need the most help. They're the people that are the ones that are most afraid, the ones with more to lose. Market volatility affects them more. So therefore, we focus with people within a few years of retirement on retirement red zone or retirees.
And these are people who are very concerned with preservation of capital.
Absolutely. Preservation is critical because as you retire, you cannot replace this money. It is so important as you approach retirement, and certainly, in your 20s and your 30s, you can withstand the volatility of the market. Hey, you can have a little fun with it, but by the time you reach your 40s and certainly your 50s and 60s, you can't replace the capital any longer. You don't have enough time. The volatility can not only wipe away years of work and make you work longer, it can also give you sleepless nights, it can ruin marriages and change your life. So it's important to alleviate a lot of those risks.
Well, you're right about the dangers of volatility, but how do you deal with that?
There's a number of ways, because there's several ways that every retiree and somebody planning for retirement must approach retirement. It's proper planning. They have to think about the most important things, optimizing Social Security. For the average 62-year-old couple, there's 1,379 different options. You have to think about tax strategies in retirement. There are special tax strategies for retirees. You have to create a retirement income stream that will last the rest of your life and your spouse's life, no matter what happens, as long as there's breath in your body. And you must also think about marginal tax distribution strategies and the sequence of distributions. It's very important to work with a qualified retirement advisor that does all the planning. The investments are important, but too much focus is paid on the investments. Everybody focuses strictly on the investment side, and they think, wow, I've got to make more money, I've got to have this investment or whatever it does. The planning is where it all comes from. If you know what you need to make, what your money needs to make, as I have a phrase, invest for need, not for greed, which means take the least amount of risk possible to achieve your objectives. So if you know what your money has to do, take the least amount of risk to get there. And it all starts, first you do the planning, and then you have to make sure that you're getting the most, because of course it's not what you make, it's what you keep after taxes. And naturally it starts with the proper investment portfolio. That's sort of the cornerstone of it, making sure that your money is invested properly. And that's what we have. We have an outstanding investment program. We use asset lock to protect the assets. And it comes with the planning, which is critical to make sure you achieve your objectives so you can go on vacation, so you can sleep well at night.
But Keith, you know very well that fear and greed are still dominant emotions in the market. How do you deal with those?
That's the most difficult thing, just sort of reining people's fear and greed in. And it's the closer somebody gets to retirement. Since 2008, I want to say, before 2008, nobody thought about the fear that wasn't there, how much they could lose. Since 2008, more and more people are cognizant of what they could lose because of what they did lose in '08, and they realize they could have retired early, or they could have been retired already, or they may never be able to retire at all. So many people are aware that they need to pare back the risk, invest their money appropriately, but also do the planning to get there. It's so critical. I've been doing this for a long time, and in those years, you figure out ways to make sure. Ultimately, my job is to help people sleep better at night, sleep well at night, without the fear of, let's face it, one of the biggest fears of anybody is running out of money in retirement.
Well, I know you've been in the business for 31 years. What kind of changes have you seen in that kind of planning that's necessary now?
It's incredible. I saw the stock market, I saw the Dow Jones cross 1,300. And I'm dating myself, but 1,300. And it's been a long time since I've seen that. And longevity is a big part of it. When I started in the business, we used to plan for somebody retirement income to last to 80, maybe 85. Then it was 90, and about 10 years ago it was 95. Now there's a very good chance at least one spouse is going to reach 100 years old, and there's going to be medical advances in the next 10, 20, 30 years where it's most likely to be 110, 120. And what would be worse than having a lot of life left in you but no money to enjoy it with?
You know, a lot of people are concerned about outliving their money.
Absolutely.
So I come to you as a client and I tell you that's my worry. And what do you tell me?
We sit down and we do the planning. That's when the planning starts. And it's not a one size fits all. It's certainly not a swing for the fences. You find out what you need to do. Do you have a pension? If you don't have a pension, we have to create one. You want to cover your necessary expenses. You got to make sure that your mortgage is paid for if you still have a mortgage, that your car payments, that your medical expenses. You know, inflation is covered, very critical. A lot of people think they can just stick money in the bank, but you can't, because at 0.2% what the bank gives you, after inflation, you're going to lose half your money in 10 or 15 years. So it's important to do the planning, do the tax planning, marginal tax distribution strategies, as I mentioned, then the sequence of distributions to make sure you're taking your money, and then you work backwards and invest your money to take the least amount of risk possible so you can relax and sleep.
You know, you mentioned inflation, and we're both old enough to remember when inflation was really a serious problem, but it hasn't been lately, and it doesn't show any immediate prospect of ticking up too high. So how do you convince people they have to be concerned about that aspect?
Well, there will be inflation. Everything moderates. I happen to think we're in a deflationary period. I wrote about it in my book, which you mentioned, Facing Goliath, How to Triumph in the Dangerous Market Ahead. We would have deflation because of the baby boomers, the demographics. The baby boomers are past their peak spending years. You have deflation when the majority of the population is no longer spending. We have 90 million baby boomers past their peak spending years, 65 million Generation Xers. They cannot make up the spending power of the 90 million baby boomers. Therefore, we have deflation, and that's what we're in now. The good news is we have the echo boomers, the kids of the baby boomers, 85 million of them. So in about 6, 7, 8 years, the market's going to boom again when they come in and you can buy anything. But for the next 6, 7, 8 years, you've got to be very careful and approach it very cautiously.
So what is your investment philosophy in that climate?
Investment philosophy is, I'm bullish on the overall U.S. economy, I'm bullish on the market, but you've got to be very, very cautious. You've got to approach it as if you cannot lose this money. You know, I sort of take an approach, you know, pray for peace, but prepare for war. You want to make money in the marketplace and make as much as you need, but take the least risk possible, because if you lose a big chunk of it as you get close to retirement or in retirement, you can't replace it and then you're stuck. And then you have to go back to work and you don't want to have to do that.
You know, the old saying is fear and greed rules the market, and those are emotions that are always with us. What do you tell your clients about that?
You have to remove that. When you get close to retirement, you remove both of those. The biggest thing is fear. Greed does go away a little bit for the people who are greedy. They realize, or should realize, that they need a certain amount of money to achieve their objectives. For instance, a 401k plan is not really a plan. A 401k is just an account to be able to pay for the things you want to pay for in retirement. So to remove fear and greed, that's what runs the stock market. But removing greed from the vocabulary of somebody who is retired is very important, because they now look at, hey, what do I need to do in order to achieve my objectives? And it's all about, what does retirement look to you? Does retirement mean you want to travel the world, more time with the grandkids? You want to go biking, fishing, hiking? As long as you can do the things you want to do comfortably, you want to be able to visit the grandkids on a plane in first class, not have to take the bus or not see them at all, right?
Well, you know, one of the problems is that people are looking at a market that's had a tremendous advance since '08, right, when it hit bottom. People tend to think that what's happening now will continue, and we both know that doesn't happen.
No.
How do you relieve them of that feeling?
With the proper planning and building a portfolio and an investment plan around taking the least risk possible with protections. We use asset lock for protection on the actual portfolio, creating that pension if they don't have one, with investments that create an income stream for the rest of their life and their spouse's life. So if you can alleviate the biggest fear that most people have, especially as they get older, of running out of money in retirement, and you create a plan that will do that, and you create a plan that will give you the best after-tax return, because it's what you keep, of course, after taxes. It all includes optimizing Social Security and creating that income stream. Then you make your investment choices, and we build a portfolio, and that's what we do. We manage money for clients, but we build it on the lowest risk possible scale to get the returns you need, and in order to get the returns that are necessary without all the risk, so you don't have to worry.
You know, I have a lot of friends who amaze me. They don't really understand Social Security. And there are lots of permutations, correct?
Absolutely.
People come to you, and do you discover that they're in that boat? They really don't understand what they should be doing?
Nobody understands Social Security. For an average couple, there are 1,379 different options. It is impossible to be able to do it without experience, expertise, years in this business. I've been doing this for 31 years. If I wasn't in this business, I wouldn't manage my own money. It's far too hard. It's far too emotional. But if people are good at it, go for it. But Social Security is so difficult. When to turn it on? When we'll optimize? The difference is easily $100, $200, sometimes $300,000 in difference when you optimize it and combine it with your investment program.
Come on, 1,300. The big decision is 62 or 65.
It's
what
really
about
not.
after that?
No, it's every single month. Social Security grows from 4.5% from 62 to 66 and 8.5% from 66 to 70. Every month you choose changes the calculation. And it really does depend. There's file and suspend, there's restricted applications. There's a lot of strategies that are they're not complicated, you just have to know them. And unless you do it for a living, it's hard to know which direction to go.
So you ask Uncle Sam to do it for you?
Yeah, they don't do that, unfortunately. You can go down to the Social Security Administration. They're very nice, but they will not help you. You call them up, you'll get a different answer every time you call. So got to be very careful doing that.
So you really need expert advice on that.
Yeah, work with a qualified retirement advisor, somebody that really specializes, because the same person that you grew with through the accumulation phase, and it can be the same person, but sometimes, typically, the same person that you worked with in your 20s and 30s and 40s is not the same person. I have many new clients who work with advisors for 20, 25 years with some of the bigger brokerage firms, realize that they need to switch to a qualified retirement advisor because it's no longer accumulation, it's preservation and distribution. That's the most important as you approach retirement or in retirement.
So you think there's a real difference between a retirement advisor and an investment advisor?
Without a doubt, absolutely there is.
And the question is, how many people are qualified to really give the right advice?
Well, just one, of course, me. But
yeah,
there are very few. I've been doing this for a long time. I focus my practice. It's very rewarding because I get to work with people and alleviate one of the biggest stresses and fears in their entire life, and that's running out of money. And I focused on being a retirement advisor about 10 or 12 years ago when I realized, I said, hey, who's going to have the money? Who's going to need advice? Well, 10,000 baby boomers a day are hitting 65 for the next 18 years. And I recognized that 10, 12 years ago, been focusing on that, studying that constantly, and really working towards that. There's so many intricacies that, most average advisors or stockbrokers are just worried about return. How much did I make? What did my fund do? Look what I can do for you. They fail the most important part, the planning and then building the investment portfolio, which is an important part, but you build it around the planning and then take the least amount of risk to get there. Invest for need, not for greed.
Keith, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to join us next time with the Fortune Knowledge Group.